So a friend of mine asked me to, Duncan McCollum asked me to give some tips to some of his folks about how to, what do you do to prepare for one rep maxes when you're asked to go for a one rep max and your programming, and how do you approach it, and what do you do to really get that next lift? Well, first and foremost, obviously, you know you want to make sure you're starting off with the right essentials, which means you're fueling up. You've got energy, you've got the right foods. So obviously, I'm not going to cover the diet plan, what you should be doing, because everyone's on a different program. But making sure that before you go into that lift, you've got enough energy in your body. For me, when I'm hitting one rep max, I spend an inordinate time, if that's the right word, I spend a long time stretching and doing full body movements. I want my blood flowing through all the muscles. I don't want anything tight. If I find anything tight, even if it's not, like, say, if I'm doing a bench day and I'm looking for a one rep max on my bench, even if it's my chest or my back or my shoulders not tight, anything that's not tight or is tight, that I want to work it out. I want to make sure that I'm at maximum performance I possibly can. And so I'm really spending that time to get my heart rate up, get my blood pumping, and to make sure that I'm doing those things that I'm identifying where my body's at, and identifying if there's tightness, I'm fixing that. And I do that before I even approach the bar. Now, when it comes to the bar, I'm a big fan of simulating the movement, and it's kind of like from the old Russian idea of, it doesn't matter what the weight is, the movement is perfect. And if your movement isn't perfect, then you're gonna have problems, and that's where you start. Your form messes up. You start having problems. You'll start ripping stuff. You start having all these injuries that you don't understand why. If you look at the Russian training plans, they're always spending an enormous amount of time just working the same movement over and over with from light weights to heavy weights. You see those guys who are pros at doing this, it looks flawless because they've done it the same way every time. So when I'm going for a one rep max, I'll get on my squat rack, or I get on my bench, and I work that bar with perfect movement. I want to make sure that neural pathway where I'm pushing that bar out is correct. I practice the tensing and the breathing. Certain lifts have, different lifts have different breathing where you hold, because you're trying to get that thoracic pressure. You certain positioning and bracing depending on the lift. I practice each and every one of those steps before I even get to putting weights on the bar. So I know that I'm ready for it. I've practiced the movement. My mind is ready for that movement. So like for bench, I'm making sure that I'm getting a good arch. I'm compressing my shoulder blades back. I'm really practicing getting that movement from sternum to overhead. So it's, and getting my body in the right position so I can, and then I also learn to drive with the legs. Those are things that I'm practicing before I get into the weights. And then once I'm ready, I kind of go. There's a whole mental side to a one rep max, because if you're not mentally ready to take on that much strain and pressure, there's a lot of times you're going to fail, and that's just because your mind's not in it. Whatever it is, something that's going to screw with you and keep you from hitting your one rep max. And so I almost get angry. Not anger. It's more of a stalking of the bar. I put a mantra in my head when I was chasing a 600-pound deadlift. I days before that lift, even before I even walked to the gym, I was saying 600 is going up today. And that was it. 600's going up, 600's going up, 600's going up. And I remember just pacing around the gym as I was warming up, 600's going up. I had no doubt in my mind. It didn't matter what happened, whether I was tense in different areas or whatever. I knew at that time 600 pounds was going up, and I was going to succeed. And so that's also when I approach any of my lifts, is that when I'm going for a one rep max and I'm prepared for it, I know that I'm going to hit that lift, and I do. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to do that. I don't give my mind the opportunity to fail. Have I failed? Yes. Yeah. It's not perfect, but I mean, that's the mentality I go into to approach that lift to make sure I get my max. So the next thing I would do is I don't spend an enormous amount of time in my warm up. So like for squats, I squat right now. It's a little bit less because of my different programming. But when I was shooting for 650, my squat would be basically I would do 135, throw in the bar. That was I mean, I didn't warm up with the bar. I threw 135 on the bar, do 5 reps. And then everything else like 225, 315, 405, 495, all of those were basically 1-2 reps, making sure my body is braced in the right condition, give myself enough rest in between sets. So usually I'm looking like, 1 to 2 minutes max, but I do have enough rest to get into that. And then when I'm ready for that 1 minute with that 1 rep max, I load up the bar. I stalk it. I put my mind that mantra, and I go after it. But then I've practiced. This is again. I've spent a lot of time of making sure my body's warmed up, making sure that the neural pathway, that the pathway of me moving that bar through that lift, that exercise is perfect, making sure that I'm bracing correctly, make sure my breathing's correctly, making sure all that's done before I even put weight on the bar. And then once you've done that, when you're ready to put the weight on the bar, then it's just a matter of just following your programming. It's just you've programmed your mind that this is what I'm going to do, straight up, and get it done. And so that is my approach. It doesn't matter if it's a deadlift, it's a snatch, if I'm doing Olympic lifting, it does not matter. It is all the same type of style and approach I'm going to, especially for 1 rep max. Now, if you're looking for anything else, it still kind of has to follow the same method. I think basically diet. Make sure you're giving yourself enough fuel to make sure you have the energy for the lifts. Couple secrets I do is I'm sipping BCAAs and maybe a pre-workout through my workout, so I'm kind of doing a little bit of both. So keeping my energy up. Also, the BCAAs kind of keeps you keep that endurance going. But outside of that, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, that's every time I hit a good heavy max, it's all because I follow those game patterns. I also just listen to my body. There are times when I need a little more time in that staging, and if you're feeling rushed or whatever, you have a potential to fail. Take the time to make sure you're right. Now, that doesn't mean you're sitting 5-6 minutes getting cold between lifts. That means if you find a weakness, address the weakness, fix that weakness, and then prepare for your lift. But you're moving, you're keeping warm, you're bracing, you're doing all those things that you need to know to get that lift correctly. And then it's just a matter of just performing it. Once you're warmed up, it's really, and your mindset's there's something that just clicks and you'll do it. Your programming should lead you to a 5 to 10 pound gain every time you go for a 1 rep max. Which means if you're putting the work in up to that point that your coach is asking you to do that 1 rep max, you're going to get it. So it's not exact or perfect, but you will get, you will see an increase. The next thing is, if you're feeling really good, don't ever be satisfied with your 1 rep max. If you feel like you got more in the tank, push yourself. Your body is not a robot, right? It's just this weird organism. Sometimes it just gives you this burst of energy. Push yourself, but do it safely. Last thing I would say is, if you're going for a 1 rep max, I've taken from a guy who's done it many, many times, 1 rep max alone. Don't do it unless you have no other choice. Work out with somebody who can bail you out. If you're in a CrossFit gym or something like that, where you can just throw the bar behind you because you have bumper plates, that's cool. If you're in a regular gym and you're using your normal steel or iron weights, you having a good spotter or a safety cage is going to catch the weights if you dump it. If you're in a bench, specifically if you're going for bench, I really suggest having 1 or 2 people there. One person for a lift off, because you don't want to spend that much energy putting that much pressure on your shoulders, and because you're taking the bar here and then bringing it down to position, that puts a lot of pressure where you don't want it, especially in the lift off of it. So if you can have somebody give you that lift off and then get you into position, and then you take for them to pick it up and you got it, it means they let go. You have those cues with your partner so that you can get that lift without injury. So outside of that, best of luck to you guys for your 1 rep max, and I hope this helped you.